Hello, my name's Caristalo, and today I'm going to be talking about knitting, crochet, and a lot of extras that have been happening because it's summertime in Wyoming. So come on in and let's get started. Hi Fiber friends, my name's Caristalo. I am the owner of Sweet Mountain Crafts, an artisan dyed yarn and fiber company. I'm also the owner of Wyoming Yarn and Fiber in Cody, Wyoming. So you can find me online in a number of places. On Instagram, I'm at Sweet Mountain Crafts, Sweet Mountain Fiber, and Sweet Mountain Mohair. And I'm also Wyoming Yarn on Instagram. And as I said, you can find me as Sweet Mountain Crafts online at sweetmountaincrafts.com. All that information is in the show notes for sure, so don't worry, you'll be able to find more there if you're interested. I am a small local yarn store owner, as I say, which is a huge part of what I do, but I am also a very busy person with a large family. We have 4 kids, 2 who have graduated and moved out of the house, but have enough to keep us going still, and then 2 that are still at home and on summer break right now, but will be heading into their junior and senior years of high school. So we have very busy days, and summertime in Wyoming is a very short and very cram-packed season. It's so much fun, but it definitely keeps us busy all summer long. So today's podcast is going to be a little bit unique in that regard. I didn't want to neglect getting a podcast out, but there is so much to share with just some extra activities, and it's been a whole month since I podcast last. So with that means that there's been a lot of activity for sure. So I'm going to try and do what I can to share some of that with you here today, and probably a little bit light on the knitting yarn related news today, but I'll get to show you some of the beautiful things that I've seen and done this summer. So in the background, I have chosen a different location this morning just for something fun and different because, like I say, this podcast is a little bit different for me anyway. So I'm standing in our geodesic dome greenhouse. As I say, Wyoming summers are relatively short and we live at a high elevation. So in order to grow anything, I do also have an outdoor garden, and I will show pictures of that as well, but it takes an excessively long time. So we are probably about a month or 2 months behind other parts of the country when it comes to producing. So the greenhouse helps us kind of take on some extra things that would be harder to grow here in Wyoming. Our greenhouse is prolific for peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers do really well in here, and in the shoulder seasons I'll grow lettuce in the greenhouse. But I also do things out in the garden, as I say, and so a lot of my root crops and some of my bigger items like zucchini or pumpkins will grow in my outside garden. But all that to be said, I am in the greenhouse today, and let's go ahead and get started with some of the things that I've been working on. So first of all, what am I wearing? This is the Merrimac shawl. I discussed this shawl on some previous podcasts. This was a fun knit along that I did at Wyoming Yarn and Fiber. And the process of knitting this shawl was enjoyable because it was different sections of lace interrupted with some garter stitch rows. But it at the same time does take a little bit of extra work or extra focus maybe, because when you pause to do the garter stitch rows, you have to kind of reset up for the next lace section. And so it took a little bit of extra work on my part to get this done, but it's beautiful. I love it. The yarn is by Songbird Fibers. The main color is Songbird Fibers, and then the little accent color was just something that I pulled from Stash just to make sure that I had enough to finish the shawl completely. I apologize if in the background you can hear our cat. We have a barn cat, Scout, who is outside the greenhouse calling for my attention. I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up or not, but as long as he hears me in here, he'll probably be out there mewing to try to get me to come love on him. So I will as soon as I'm done filming. Woohoo! I made it. These are some of my finished objects that I wanted to share and make sure to show you guys before I share some other things that have been going on in life. First of all, in this great bag, This is a bag by Wendy. Wendy came, let's see, Wendy, or W-E-N, so Wen Knits on Instagram. Wendy is someone that I had the pleasure of meeting at the Knitting McPurley retreat in January out in North Carolina. And it was really fun because she told me that she was going to get a chance this summer to come to my shop in Cody. And since Cody, Wyoming is just outside the east entrance of Yellowstone National Park, we get travelers from all over the world. So if you are ever headed to Yellowstone, be sure to let me know. I would love to get to meet you in person and host you at my yarn store so that you could see my shop and get a chance to visit with me. So anyone that watches my podcast, if you're in Cody, Wyoming, please reach out to me and let me know you're coming my way. But Wendy came and she brought me this great gift. Isn't this so sweet? So it was the week of the 4th of July, and she brought me this bag that she had made for herself. She said that she made just a limited number of these. She doesn't make this for a business. It was just something that she enjoys doing. She sews and makes quilts and all that. So she made a bag for herself, and she said one for a friend and then one for me as well. And isn't it just cute? I love it. 4th of July in Cody, Wyoming is a very big event. So because of that, there's all kinds of excitement here in the area and lots of activity the week of the 4th. So it was fun to get to see Wendy, but it's also just an exciting time in Cody. So if you're ever, again, have the opportunity to come this way, do consider the 4th of July as an opportunity or a time to come visit. But in the bag, I have my 307 shawl. This is a pattern that is my own. If you're interested in the shawl pattern, it's available on my website, wyomingyarn.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter, it should give you the option to choose either a crochet or a knit version of the shawl. And the idea was that I dye a lot of sock sets. If you've watched my podcast before, again, you'll know that I do a Sock Adventures subscription set, as well as I just dye a lot of sock sets, which is where I have one full skein and then a coordinating mini. This happened to be a set that I did for my Patreon subscribers back when I was on Patreon last year. I'm no longer on Patreon, but this set went out to all my Patreon subscribers. This was an indigo, so this is all natural dye. And then this was a mini that I dyed to go with it. So I wanted it to be a very patriotic inspired set, and it was really fun to knit it up for this shawl. So this shawl is yet to be complete. I need to weave in ends and I need to properly block it, but I will get to that soon, and we'll have this available to wear next year on the 4th. Here is just a little bit, some images and some video from the 4th of July here in Cody.
Using the horse spirit to heal and teach the young people life skills. Great. Thank you.
Like how to pronounce walking.
Yes.
The next thing that I finished, also related to the 4th of July, was actually a rug hook project. So this is primitive rug hooking, and it's something that I wanted to make for my shop, just as a little decoration, as well as I really don't have a lot of experience with rug hooking, so I wanted to try a small project to start. I made the mistake of using painter's drop cloth for my cloth for this project, which is a really loose weave, but it's not a very open weave. So as I would add more and more loops to my hooking, it would get tighter and tighter to where it was harder and harder to get the hook through the fabric. But it was just a small project. It was me just trying it out, just seeing what that fabric would work like, and as well as just playing with the rug hooking. It was fun. I enjoy the little pillow that I made from it, and it's now on display at my shop and will be something that I'm able to put out every year around the 4th. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I do more rug hooking. I think I like punch needle better, but we'll see. I'll play around with it some more and see what I think. The next thing I want to talk about is I've been working on making some mini granny squares from some opal minis that I've received. I had purchased these from Anna Knitter, and this was part of her Christmas in July advent from last year. I've got fuzz on my lip. Anyway, so she sent out 25 minis and then one full skein of opal. I love this sock yarn. It's one of my favorites. And so I decided to take them and turn them, all these minis, into mini granny squares. And I've, again, shown this on the podcast previously, but it's been a few episodes ago that I did any kind of an update. So I just wanted to show I am still making mini squares. These obviously don't have ends woven in yet, but I did get a pile of them done. This is just a few here that I was able to grab quick, but I have a number of them made, and we'll slowly be putting these together. Possibly here on the channel, I'll try to put up an image soon of how many I've gotten done. I do hope to make a blanket with these though, so it's going to take a number of these to be able to get blanket quantities worth, because they are really small. Let's see, I think they're about a 2-inch. By the time I block them out, they're probably about a 2-inch square. Another thing that I worked on that was so much fun is I participated in Shark Week with politically incorrect knitters. Unfortunately, I was not able to participate as much as I would have liked, just because we were also taking a horseback trip up into the mountains where we had no cell reception for a period of the time. And so I was able to start my project, my Shark Week project, before we went up into the mountains, and then I finished it while we were up in the mountains. So I'll be showing some video of the horseback trip here soon, but first I want to show you what I made. So in my Shark Week bag by Susan of Delightful Works, she made these great bags. It's so cute. My bag's a little beat up and a little dingy from being in the saddlebag on the horse, but oh, and it still smells like campfire, which, you know, when you just smell all over of campfire, you're kind of like, oh, I'm so ready to go home and get a shower. But then after the fact, it just brings back cozy camping memories. Oh, I love that feeling. For any of you campers, you understand. Anyone that doesn't love to camp, I know there's many of you. I'm sorry. I feel like you're missing out on a huge thing. I love camping, especially up in the mountains where it's cool and beautiful. And anyway, but I wanted to show, here is my finished object. These were some socks that I knit. I did these on my Chiaogu US1 2.25 millimeter needle. This is using online Super Sock and Sunset Color in colorway 2582. It just seemed so fitting. I mean, look at how well these socks match this bag. So it just seemed like the appropriate thing to do, as well as this is the beginning of my Christmas gift knits. So I was able to participate not only in Shark Week, but also Summer Sock Camp with Crazy Sock Lady, and also considered this an entry into the Rose Opal Knits Christmas Make-Along for July. So I kind of double dipped on a number of hashtags there, but it was a fun project to do. And as you'll see in these images, I was able to finish them on my trip up in the mountains. So now I'm going to take a quick pause here and just give you a moment to enjoy a little bit of what my pack trip was. I don't have a whole lot here, but just a little bit to show you what it was like up in the mountains here in Wyoming. The pack trip was so much fun. My husband bought that as a Christmas gift to me, and it was he and myself and our 2 younger children that got to go on this trip, and it was definitely a lifetime memory made. When I was a little girl, that's some of my earliest memories of being in the mountains was on pack trips. My parents had horses, and so we would go up into the mountains, and it was just fun to bring back some of those childhood memories for me. So I had a fabulous time. One of the things that I also want to show on this video, like I say, the knitting part of this video is a little bit less than normal, but I have all these great things I want to share with you guys about Wyoming and the Mountain West. So I'm going to take a moment here and do a little video montage of some of the amazing wildflowers. The wildflowers in the mountains have been so incredible this summer. So we've had a lot of extra rain this year up in the mountains, which is great for us. I know a lot of the country has had more drought-like conditions, but for some reason it's been kind of flipped for us here. We've had a lot of extra moisture this late spring, early summer. And so because of that, the wildflowers, as well as it stayed cooler this spring later than usual. And with that, it has caused the wildflowers to just go crazy, as well as their season seems to be a little bit extended. Usually by this time, we start to see the wildflowers fading and going into more of our dry summer weather. So it's just been incredible. So here, enjoy some of these beautiful mountain flowers. Now let's move into some of my works in progress. So I have a number of things that I'm working on, but I'm just going to focus on a few here today on the podcast. So first of all, let's look at this origami shawl that I've started. This is a fun project. I don't remember the designer's name. I'll have to put that name here. But the origami shawl was actually a pattern in a book by Noro. I'm not using Noro yarn, however, for this project. This is Picturissimo by Louisa Harding, and it's just this beautiful variegated yarn color. But you can see, let's see if I can move this yarn out of the way a little bit. You can see that it creates this really interesting hills and valleys texture, like an folded origami project would have. So it's a really fun, fairly memorizable pattern. I'm really enjoying doing it. The story on this pattern is that a friend of mine had come into the shop and purchased the yarn. She's not typically a knitter, but she was willing to give it a go. And she got started on it, but I knew she wasn't working on it. And she's a really good friend of mine that said that she would wear the shawl whenever she finished it. Well, her daughter is also working on one, and her daughter is quite a ways. I think she's even further along than I am on her own. But since my friend's birthday is coming up, I decided to have her daughter rescue the project from her mom and bring it to me so that I could finish it for her birthday. So she doesn't know that I have this. Hopefully she doesn't watch the podcast. But I took the project so that I could work on it, finish it, and then gift it to her for her birthday. She had only just barely started the first couple rows of it, and I actually took that part out because not knowing the pattern very well at that point, and it's hard to read someone else's knitting sometimes, I just decided it would be easier to start from the beginning. So I have started the project fresh. The entirety of the project will be a repeat of this section here, so there's this one pattern repeat that occurs like right here, and it repeats itself 12 times overall. So it'll be a generous size shawl or wrap. I mean, it's pretty wide, what, like 18 inches probably, something like that. So it's a pretty wide wrap, but it's beautiful and it's been really fun to work on. And since her birthday's in August, I am trying to kind of make this a high priority for myself right now. On it, you can see that I have this row counter. This is a great row counter from Twice Sheared Sheep. This is my first time using one of these, but I just recently brought these into the shop at Wyoming Yarn, and I decided that I better give it a go and see what I thought and learn how to use it so that I could communicate with my customers what these tools, how these tools worked and what they're good for. So that's what that is. I am knitting this on a US 8 or 5 millimeter needle, and I just happen to be using the needles that she had with the project. So she'll be getting hopefully a finished project and needles back when I'm all done. The next project that I'm working on, I believe I've shown this before. Oh, I got dirt on it again. Casualties of being in a greenhouse. All right, but it's in this bag that I've shown before. This is the bag by Rose Petals. A fun bag that I've had for a while now. And in it, I am working on a pair of socks that I believe I've shown on the podcast before, but this is a great yarn. Again, another online super sock in the Andin color, or Andin line. And this is color 2686. And I love the colors in this pair of socks. This is probably just a pair of socks for myself, possibly a gift, we'll see. But it's just a fun, no nonsense, simple sock. So I'm enjoying doing this. I've just finished my heels, so now I've started up the legs of the sock. I do my socks 2 at a time, again on a Chiaogu US 1 2.25 millimeter needle. It is my preferred go-to sock pattern because at this point, it's a no-brainer for me. I don't have to do a lot of time thinking or considering. I just adjust the number of stitches depending on the person that I'm intending the finished sock for. So the Shark Week socks that I did were 60 stitch count. I tend to be a little bit of a loose knitter, I think. So, and I like my socks with negative ease, so I make them a little bit extra tight. So the 60 count is for my son. So I think he wears like a men's 9.5, I believe, and has a fairly narrow foot. So the 60 count works for him. And then for myself, I've done a 58 stitch count, which is my go-to size for myself all the time. So again, I think I'm a little bit of a loose knitter. I am a combination knitter. And so I think that it tends to make my knitting just a little bit looser than some other people's, but that's my happy place with my socks. So yes. And then the final work in progress that I have is the Easy Does It shawl. Again, this is a project that I'd shown on the podcast previously, but I hadn't shown it for a while because it kind of went in a little bit of timeout while I was busy with some other things, trying to get some other things off the needles. But this is the Easy Does It shawl. This is knit using Giardino by Louisa Harding. Isn't this a beautiful variegated yarn? So this is a cotton acrylic blend, and it's a chainette ply. So for those of you that aren't familiar, chainette ply has where it's kind of like a pre-knitted cord. This one is a really different, the chain in it kind of stretches, so it's harder to see that chainette in there, but that's the type of yarn that it is that makes a really unique texture. And then with the cotton, I find that chainette plies tend to be just a little bit softer than a standard ply. So like Ultra Pima by Cascade is a well-known cotton yarn, and it's just a standard ply cotton. It might be like a 2 or a 4 ply, I don't remember right now, but it's a little bit coarse. It has a little bit of a ropey texture to it. And that can be a little bit hard on your hands. It still knits or crochets up beautifully, but it can be a little bit harder on your hands, I find. Where this chainette ply has just a little more give. And then certainly with the acrylic blend in this, it's definitely a soft feeling yarn. But this Easy Does It shawl by Darn Knit Anyway is very similar to the Sophie scarf that a lot of people are knitting right now. But this is a free pattern available online. And again, link will be available in the show notes below. I'm enjoying it. I have, let's see, this much of the first ball to go. And once I finish this up, then I'll add the second ball and start decreasing. And this will make just a generous size, a long but kind of skinny shawl. So I'm excited about that and working on that. Again, kind of a no-brainer project in these busy days of the summer right now. I have to show this off just because it's here in my bag. This is one of my Notions pouches from Devin of Knitty McPurley. Isn't this a cute bag? This was her Corona bag, and she has even a little crown progress keeper on the, or zipper pull there. But this was one of her pouches that she made during COVID. So the coronavirus Corona bag, I had to buy one just as kind of a memory and a funny little keepsake. But it's full of all kinds of goodies inside, all kinds of notions. And it is being held in the bag with my Easy Does It shawl. And the bag itself is another from Susan of Delightful Works. So this bag is getting a lot of mileage right now. It's been hanging out in my go-to knitting area, and when one project leaves, another one gets put in, so it's being used quite a bit. Anyway, I am going to take another quick pause and just put in a little bit more video and images here of some more summertime in Wyoming, and then I'll come back and we'll wrap things up here soon. So the last thing that I was going to talk about is reading. Sometimes I like to talk on the podcast about some of the books that I'm reading. I did mention Shadow and Bone, the Shadow and Bone series by Leigh Bardugo here recently. And I had another person comment on that. And I just wanted to say I'm almost done with the trilogy. I am on like the last third of the final book, which is Ruin and Rising. Again, I'm enjoying it. It's a young adult fiction, but it's relatively clean and reasonably enjoyable for just a quick right before bed read. So that's how I tend to read a lot of the fiction books that I enjoy, is just a little bit before I go to sleep at night. The other book that I have been reading and had mentioned on the podcast before was My Antonia by Willa, Cather. I also am equally enjoying that, but I found that I was kind of setting that one aside to finish the Shadow and Bone series. So I'm sure once I get Ruin and Rising finished, then I'll finish My Antonia. But both books are equally enjoyable. One is more historical fiction. The other is completely more fantasy and otherworldly type fiction, but definitely equally fun. So yeah, I think that's all I have to share for today. I will be back again, hopefully maybe sooner than a month, we'll see. The rest of the summer is equally as busy for me. I'm always running through the summer, but I love it. It's just gorgeous in the mountains, and I love what we have to do all summer long. So I'll be back and I'll share more before too long. Thanks for sticking in here with me and seeing what I have to share. And if you haven't already and you enjoy what you see, please like, please subscribe, and please share with your friends. And I will catch up with you next time. Bye-bye. Scout, you're fine, bud. So, like I say, it's... Oh, Scout. Oh, my cat is trying to get into the greenhouse. Scout, not right now, bud.